All right, y'all. Not Just Sunday podcast. Welcome back. Welcome to my backyard. You've never seen my backyard before. Welcome to my backyard. Welcome to my toes in the grass. You've never seen my toes. Hopefully you've never seen my toes before. You definitely never seen my toes in the grass before. You know what my friend told me? My friend told me that if you come outside at least once a day, preferably in the morning, and put your toes in the grass, it helps to put your body back into the natural like circadian rhythm. So it could give you more energy and more mental clarity and just help your body just understand that, day is day and night. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Anyway, also, don't make fun of my toes because I had my last pedicure was like 2 weeks ago. Actually, no, my last pedicure was like 3 weeks ago. And before you start the whole conversation of all these church dudes are feminine, I got to get pedicures because I have an ingrown and my lady at the shop is the only one that can fix me up. All right. I'm trying to take advantage of this nice lighting before it's too late. I want to say this. I had a conversation with my wife and tell me if I'm tripping or not. You tell me if I'm wrong for this. But I told her, I said, hey, baby, I gotta get back into work mode. And I apologize in advance because when I'm in work mode, everything else takes a back seat. But in order for me to focus, in order for me to build, in order for me to continue on this path that God has me on, there's some seasons of my life where I have to be extremely focused, extremely diligent, and some of my responsibilities as a husband, as a father, they tend to fall off. And when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm an ain't you-know-what husband. I'm not saying that I'm a deadbeat dad, but I'm simply saying some of the obligations I'm not going to be able to fulfill. Some of the previous obligations that I was doing in the previous seasons, I'm not going to be able to fulfill those obligations. And also, I apologize in advance if I'm a little bit, impatient, or if I just seem like I don't have the time to sit and be fully attentive in certain conversations because I'm pouring out so much mentally in work that I'm not able to fully be present here in the moment as a husband, as a father, as I was in previous seasons. And I'm not saying that I was ever perfect. It sounds like there's like a dying dog in our bush, but so these birds, and something that I learned is San Diego is the most biodiverse city in the United States, meaning the animals, sea life, birds, everything you can think of, wildlife, plants, everything. There's more of it in San Diego, more variety than anywhere else in the United States. I say that because we got a lot of birds and these birds be going crazy. These birds be singing at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I've tricked my brain into thinking that these birds are singing worship. So now it doesn't bother me at 4 o'clock in the morning, but these birds be getting active and these birds be having babies. And, this bird in particular, I'm looking at this bird. It's staring at me in the face right now. This bird, it got closer to me. As I am pointing at the bird got closer to me. This mommy and daddy bird set up what's it called? A nest in one of our bushes, and they leave their babies in there all day long. They be coming back and like dropping off worms and stuff like that. But for the most part, they be leaving their babies there for like it's 12, 14 hours a day unattended. And they just be crying and crying and crying and crying. Anyway, am I wrong for telling my wife that I'm not going to be the best husband? I'm not going to be the best father because in order for me to pour everything that I can possibly pour into my work, it requires my full attention. It requires my full focus. It requires my diligence. It requires my obedience. Am I wrong for saying that? Because I don't know any other way. I'm not the type of person who can do something halfway and feel like I'm pouring into it completely. I'm the type of person who has to be a little bit insane, who has to be a little bit crazy, who has to be a little bit, I don't know if manic is the right word, but maybe like delusional. I'm the type of person who has to have like a delusional like work ethic and obsession over what I'm doing in order to feel like I'm actually going in the path wholeheartedly that God is calling me into. At the same time, when I get into these states of mind, when I get into these intense seasons of focus, I also have to be very mindful that I'm not being the best husband that I can be. I'm not being the best father that I can be. I'm not being the best son that I can be. I'm not being the best sibling that I can be. I'm not being the best friend that I can be. But most importantly, I'm not being the best husband that I can be. The thing about my work, though, it's interesting because the more I delve into my work, the closer I feel like I'm getting to God, because the majority of my work requires study of the Bible. The majority of my work requires having to exercise discernment. The majority of my work requires having to lean on the Holy Spirit for guidance and the right words. And I know in myself that I can't show up and be all of those things on my own, in my own strength. So there's a part of me that feels closer to God. But then there's also a part of me that feels like I'm choosing to allow things to be lacking in certain areas. And I don't know how to necessarily reconcile that. And this is not like one of those like podcasts where I have the answers. And I don't think any of my podcasts is a podcast where I have any of the answers. This is really just like a transparent post of mine where I'm saying that in certain seasons of my life, at least, it requires so much focus and so much diligence that I'm extremely thankful to have a wife that is understanding, that allows me to put all of myself into my craft. And also, here's another thing. I just got out of a season of, wow, I'm getting attacked by ants. But I'm comfortable. I just got out of a season where I was kind of just like coasting. I wasn't really pouring everything into it. I wasn't really operating in the fullness of the call that God placed. And I felt that. And it created a lot of anxiety within me. It created a good amount of resentment in me towards individuals in my life. And it created just a feeling of maybe like a mild depression even, and maybe even slightly higher than mild. Because I'm the type of person who I'm constantly thinking about mortality. I'm constantly thinking about death. And I'm also constantly thinking about what I'm not doing. And I don't think that's healthy. But at the same time, this is the wiring and this is what I'm dealing with. This is my flesh. And I feel like even within that, God has been able to use it in a way that has been good for the most part. I hope and I pray. But I'm just wondering, what do you guys do to help you achieve a greater sense of balance in your life? And what does that look like for you specifically? And how are you involving God, your spouse, in that process in order to help you have a more balanced approach to reaching your goals, but ultimately walking in the call that God has for you? And as I said before, this is not a situation where I have the answers to any of these questions. I'm really just bringing this conversation to the forefront and hoping that, it sparks a bigger conversation, I guess. I really don't know, to be honest with you. I really have no idea. I think with these seasons of intense focus, something that is extremely necessary, if you're anything like I am, it's extremely necessary for you to take breaks. It's extremely necessary for you to not continue down this path of knowingly falling short in areas without addressing it, because then it's going to become habitual, and then it's going to be very tempting to just adopt that as your identity. You know what I'm trying to say? But at the same time, I do think that these seasons of extreme focus are necessary in order to reach certain levels that otherwise our lack of focus would not open the door to. So it's a delicate balance, and I'm still learning how to balance that myself. Anyway, I gotta go back inside. I gotta do another video. Let me know what y'all think. Get in my comments, like this video. I'm out, y'all. I don't know why I did that. I never salute, but I'm out, y'all.